Well, I think you're right, Mr. Scott. Maybe, I don't know, put it through the dilithium sequencer, something like that. Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're talking Star Trek, but actually this is born out of a video game thing that I saw that I thought, yeah, as I was watching this video, I suddenly triggered Star Trek the original series, and I thought, well, I gotta come down here to engineering to talk about it, because it's actually engineering related in a way. There was a video that came out in the summertime, a couple months ago, from Critical Pixels, and it was a very good video just talking about how this has been for the current generation. Like with the launch of the PlayStation 5 Pro, the thrust of the video's commentary was, why are we getting a PlayStation 5 Pro when this has been a generation of empty promises? There are almost no games currently that make it worthwhile to have upgraded from a PlayStation 4 to a PlayStation 5. Never mind a Pro. That's not worthwhile. What games, what unique exclusives are there for the PlayStation 5 that show you what you paid all that money for 4 years ago to get your console up to the latest and greatest? And now there's a Pro for twice the price, practically. What's the reason for that? You could look back generation of video games and go, okay, the leap from 8-bit to 16-bit or to 3D polygonal PlayStation 1 era, and then PlayStation 2. Oh yeah, this is more like something you would get in an arcade. And then PlayStation 3. Now you've got internet connectivity, you've got wireless controllers. PlayStation 4 started to, kick up steam, but are we really noticing a huge difference? Grand Theft Auto 5 ran on the PlayStation 3. I know, because I played it on that thing. And now PlayStation 5 is out, and it's like, well, there's a handful of games that really benefit from all the ray tracing and the high fidelity, but that's the thrust of the PlayStation 5 Pro's sales pitch is, oh, so many people we've noticed are not running their games in the high fidelity mode where you've got all the sweet 4K resolution images. Most players are flicking the little switch, because I have, to performance mode, so you get the 60 frames per second, as much as you possibly can, even though there's a lot of games that don't do that. And Critical Pixel talked about how Xbox and PlayStation have struggled to keep stuff above 30 frames per second. And that's current generation. And that's playing games that came out, like Cyberpunk, or other ones that he lists, the God of War. They came out on the PlayStation 4. There's a PlayStation 5 version, and it runs smoother and better. You can see what you paid the money for. But if they are now saying that the PlayStation 5 Pro is needed to get us to even slightly better graphics, it's diminishing returns. Now we all know this has nothing to do with my current topic, but Critical Pixel made an interesting comment toward the end of his video where he proposed, wouldn't it be good, or wouldn't the landscape look a lot different and more like it used to be if instead of these more and more power under the hood type consoles, if we gave developers less powerful consoles, so they had to think their way around the limitations of the hardware? What if we made it so that they had to develop tips and tricks? I mean, back in the old days, like talking Atari 2600, Yars' Revenge, that ribbon of energy field that you have to fly through and it gives you a bit of protection sometimes, that's extra code that Howard Scott Warshaw just managed to pull. Hey, I can grab this data, this data stream, which is used for other parts of the game. I can use that as a display. Brilliant. The Nintendo Entertainment System had the same graphic was used for bushes as it was for clouds. They just colored it differently, and we all instinctively thought, well, that's a bush. Oh, that's a cloud. You can tell because of where it is on the screen and the color. But they are the same graphic. Why don't we have games today and consoles today that push developers to think and work harder? Now, this is where Star Trek the original series comes in. Because what really struck me for years is this is a 1960s television show. You're going to have to come up with really tricky ways. You're going to have to hack the code to make a space battle occur, because we don't have a lot of models, and the whole blue screen technology was in its absolute infancy back then. And not only that, but like, you have to use writing and acting and music and sound effects to broadcast stuff that we can't just show it on screen. Case in point, one of my favorite original series episodes, Devil in the Dark. Kirk and Spock encounter the Horta, and they are going through the mines. Kirk separates from Spock, and he enters a chamber full of eggs. And Shatner has a few of the egg bowling balls around him, but he looks up and around, and there's music that's scintillating and tinkling to indicate, oh, this is a vast chamber. When we all know instinctively, no, he's just looking at the cameraman behind the equipment. Like, that is how you take what limitations you have and you broadcast to the audience, no, he's in a huge chamber. Or through the episodes where, okay, a really good indicator for me happened back in the 90s. You could argue today we have Star Trek, the original series, version 2.0, where they've taken the old 60s effects out of the shots, and then they've put in new effects, and that makes it a little more polished. That gives it, an appeal for modern audiences. But back in the 90s, we didn't have that. We had the original 60s cut. And I remember my brother telling me a funny story. He also plays Dungeons and Dragons, much like myself. He was getting together with his crowd to get a session going, and one of them was running a little late. And he said, what's keeping you, man? What took you so long? And he said, well, I happened to be getting ready, and this old Star Trek episode was on, and it just captivated me in a way that I had not expected. Now, this guy likes Star Trek The Next Generation. He was a 90s kid. Like, he was much more enthralled with good costumes, good story writing, good special effects, the things that Star Trek The Next Generation benefited from. He probably dismissed the original series as a bunch of schlocky old tin foil, plastic boulders that don't obviously do any damage, that kind of thing. But he was captivated by the episode A Taste of Armageddon, because he said to my brother, I don't know what's going on, what the story is here, or what episode we're talking about, but these people have been told by a computer that 40,000 people have to die, so 40,000 of you have to walk into these disintegrators. And they were doing it. And I was captivated. I was like, what? Why would somebody do that? And Kirk goes in and changes the situation. He's like, no, that's not the way things go. We're going to destroy your equipment, and now you have a real war on your hands. And the friend of my brother was just like, what is even going on here? He's changed the whole plot line. It's like, yeah, that's right. That's the power of the original series. And I thought to myself, yeah, when you are limited by a lousy production budget, you've got terrible sets and awful costumes, and we got to reuse some of the old pieces from last season because we're just not going to get the budget to build a new monster or a new cavern or anything like that. You call upon the writers to really think things through, and they have to innovate. Innovate, that's the word I was looking for. Critical Pixels, I think, is stretching or reaching for, if only developers today would innovate and actually make use of what the hardware can do currently, and stop making us shove more horsepower under the hood. I talked about this on my Space Docker VR episode, where I was just like, the more you put under the hood, the more stuff they're going to shove into the game, and therefore the frame rate is going to drop once again. It happened with the Wii, it happened with the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4, now it's happening with the PlayStation 5. You would think, with all of this horsepower now, we would never run into 30 frames per second. We do, because developers instantly go, I got to cram more zombies, I got to put more people in the crowd, I got to have faster spaceships or race cars or whatever, and suddenly the frame rate drops. It's going to happen with the Pro, just like it's happening with the PS5, and it happened with the PS4, and as further back as you go, there's always going to be a frame rate problem. If only people would learn and innovate and work within the confines of the hardware they've got, like Atari did, like the NES did, like Star Trek, the original series, did. So, I just thought, yeah, given this is kind of an engineering level question, I think I should be here in engineering to pose the discussion, and kind of interested to hear what you guys say. Anyway, gonna leave it there. Mr. Scott, I think, is just about ready, so we're gonna engage the warp drive pretty soon. I'm gonna get out of here, back up to the bridge. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.